Hey guys, I think I have a little bit too much light. Oh, sorry, sweet. Come on. Good girl. Sorry guys, I'm just doing it for my YouTube channel, like doing all the updates. Takes a bit of time. I hope if it. I wonder if putting all the light behind you helps. A bit more normal looking. Maybe. So, hi guys, welcome. Hello. So welcome to Livestream. If you're new to Livestream, then I do these talks every Monday and Wednesday here on YouTube at 6 p.m. French time. But please always check my website because sometimes I can't make it, or there's a problem with the technical. If you want to join any event I do, then you can go onto my website and see what I get up to. I have a retreat coming up in April, the end of March for Easter. But it's getting quite full, so there's not that many places left. So if you wanted to book or thinking about booking, then I would book your spot. Do you think it's... So somebody was asking me, sorry that I always do this at the beginning of the talk, but I have to add everything onto YouTube. It's not something that they offer you to do before you go live. You have to do it once you're live. Be nice if they offered that option. So somebody yesterday was asking me lots of questions about what it's like on a retreat. They were thinking of coming on a retreat. And although I can answer a certain amount, it's better I just talk about it. So basically, what I try to do on retreat is encourage a group dynamic to support each other. I think often when people come on retreat, they're living in communities which aren't interested in non-duality and aren't interested in exploring yourself or understanding yourself. And so when some people come onto retreat, sometimes they've been experiencing loneliness or isolation from their society. So I try and encourage a social atmosphere. I normally do silence during the day, just because I've discovered that if you don't give people silence, then they won't limit themselves with socializing and with talking, and what they actually do is exhaust themselves. They get overwhelmed. They're so happy to be with like-minded people that they then exhaust themselves talking. So I normally have silence during the day, although I change it around a bit, and in the evening then people can talk again. And it's more because my experience is if you don't enforce that and put that as a rule, people won't take time out for themselves, and they'll keep crossing their boundary with socializing, and they actually begin to exhaust themselves. I also find that when people are on retreat, they begin to build up so much energy because they're doing something different from what they normally do. They've got a lot more time to focus on themselves. They're eating really well. They're sleeping well. And so a lot of energy builds up, and they don't have all the pressures of their regular life. And also for a lot of people, the routine of it is really good as well. I've changed a lot the way that I hold retreats, because I do also think that being comfortable with yourself is a really important part of becoming balanced on the human level. So being comfortable with your own time and being comfortable with just sitting. So before I used to encourage some silent time when we had our group, so some silent sitting. And I didn't specifically say it, I just encouraged it indirectly. Whereas now I more specifically say it, because again, I realized if you don't specifically say it, then people miss the point and they are frustrated because they want to be talking or they want to be learning about non-duality. But when they understand that this is about like getting to know yourself too, and this is about learning about yourself. Although you can't meditate yourself to non-duality, nothing can force the human to non-duality, because the human appears in non-duality. But on the human level, it's really beneficial to understand yourself, to quiet yourself, to understand the working of your mind. And when I do these meditations, I guide people into their body repetitively every day, so they understand what their body's feeling, what their body's wanting, what their body's asking. And I also simultaneously point out that the body and the world are one and the same thing. Your experience is that sensation is everything and everywhere, and perception, consciousness, and I am is everywhere and everything. I also spend an hour or two talking about non-duality a day when we're on retreat, but I don't spend all my time talking about that. I sort of divide it up between balancing the human and talking about non-duality, because I find a lot of what people are looking for is actually more balance in their life. And I feel like when that's achieved, then there will be more of a relaxation and less seeking, and then there's more possibility to hear something that's beyond the human. So I also work individually with people in the front of the group and explore their dynamics so that other people can watch and learn from that. And I also do group exercises to try and help people understand what it is they want, what it is their body's wanting, what it is they're doing in situations, and trying to understand their unconscious process on the human level a bit better. And once you understand yourself on the human level, the unconscious process on the human level, then it's so much easier to integrate that into social situations, into relationships, into work, into everything. And I try to be super positive and encourage a positive, joyful atmosphere. I often do dance with people and games to try and create positivity. And often it creates a lot of love and connection within the group, which I think is super healthy. The place where I go to in Spain is in the countryside, so you have a town about a 20-minute walk away, a little tiny village, and a bigger town at the bottom of the hill. It's maybe an hour and a half walk. But it's on the hillside and it's really quiet, and I really love this space because it just focuses on the retreat rather than if you do it in a town or a city, there's more distractions there. And it gives people the opportunity to detox from the internet, from drinking. There is drinking alcohol, sugar. We do have caffeine. We do have sugar as well, but not so much. And to be outside, lots outside. It tends to be sunny, which is very good for people. So I particularly like this place. It's very hard to find retreat centres that tick all your boxes, and I think that this one ticks all my boxes. It's very eco and outside living, so it's not like a really luxurious retreat if that's what you're wanting. It's not that, it's more basic, like some of the accommodation is in these tree houses, and everything's made out of wood, handmade out of wood. Your bed, your dressing table, everything. That's sweet. Then there's some stone houses, and then there's some made out of these soil constructions, I forget what they're called. And there's a lot of outside toilets and outside showers. There's also some inside ones as well. But for me, I'm more inclined towards that. I do like high luxury, but I just find that really nice, like living so close in nature. Yeah, so that's this retreat. Other retreats, I'm looking for more retreat centres which are like that. And also I try to find a place that's accessible for people with lots of money and accessible for people with little money. Because I tend to attract a huge variety of age range. And so obviously if you're on the younger age range, you tend not to have attracted so much money towards you yet. So you need more basic prices. And I tend to encourage this sponsorship program as well. There's only a certain amount of discounts I can give before I go bankrupt. So I decided to set up this sponsorship where people with more money and with more finances sponsor those that can't afford it. Which works well for everybody. I tend to find that, so at the moment for this one we've got one person fully sponsored. I sometimes find that people are nervous if you've got more money to do this sort of program. Not because they don't want to give, but what it implies to them, I think, maybe when they're on the retreat, the other person knows. So it's totally anonymous when you give, so nobody knows that it was you, except the organizer. And maybe me, but maybe also not me. So if you are the one who was asking me lots of questions about the retreat and what it's like, I hope that gives a better idea. I'm so white. Um, let's see if I can change that a little. Yeah. I did not get lighting. This iPad is incredibly hard to light. Do, do, do. Maybe that's a little better. So, hey guys, sorry about the light. It's not that I don't practice, I do practice, and then when it comes to it, YouTube just does something different. I can't, like, yeah. It's just not quite, I need a big Mac computer, but that's like £4,000, and I just don't have that at the moment. I haven't got the right equipment to make it proper. So I apologise, but I'm working with what I've got. And the space that I've got as well, the size of the room, the colour, the light going down. But I'm sure it'll come for the computer, the money. So on the human level, we have such diversity. We have some people that have really strong intellect. We have some people that are really good at arts and crafts. We have some people that are really good at caring and some that are really good at mathematics. There's so many things. We have some people that look a certain way and others look a different way. There's such a huge diversity in humans. But there's a part to us that's equal. It's the same that looks out of Donald Trump's eyes, the same as looked out of Charlie Manson's eyes, the same that looks out of the beggar, out of the unknown, out of the special, the unique, the poor, the rich, Indian people, Chinese people, British people, Saudi Arabian people, American people. Our essence is the same. Our essence is equal. On the human level, we have all these games of hierarchy and power and disempowered. But on the absolute level, it's the same energy that's looking out. The same one energy that's creating out all this, that's hearing these words. That's looking at the room, that's sitting on the seat, that's experiencing this. So on the human level, quite rightly, we believe that we're a name. So on the human level, I'm Lisa, and you are your name. And Lisa has, so I have a story of Lisa, of my life, my circumstances, my particular conditioning, my particular finance, where I live, my upbringing, the colour of my skin, my age. And compared to some people, I'm super wealthy. Compared to some people, I'm super poor. Compared to some people, I'm really empowered and really active. But compared to some other people, I'm not so empowered and I'm not so active. So in the human world, we have all these stories about us, and some of them are better than other people and some of them are worse than other people. It depends who you compare yourself to, and it depends on your qualities on the human level. And this human, it sees everything in the human way. So I know that sounds weird, but as humans, we think that we think originally and by ourselves, and it's different from everyone else's. But actually, we all think dependent on our conditioning and our experiences and what came before and our genetics and our current experience. And we all think in that human formation. We don't think whale, we don't think dog, we don't think alien. We think in the human way. And our thinking has different layers to it. It has thoughts that we're conscious of, on the personally conscious of, and then we have these thoughts that we're unconscious of. So we have thoughts in this moment like, oh, I like what she's saying. And then underneath, we might have unconscious thoughts where you feel attracted to me, or you dislike me, or you feel jealous of me. And we're normally unconscious of that, and normally they manifest on the conscious human level in thoughts like, she doesn't know what she's, or look at her, who does she think she is, trying to be superior, or wow, she's so amazing, she knows everything. And underneath, it might be that we're feeling a feeling of or in loveness or jealousy. So we have this conscious level and we have this unconscious level. And we don't know as humans where thoughts are. We've been told many times they're in the brain, but we're not sure. They also think that they are in the body as well. When they do organ transplants, sometimes the new receptant of the organ has memories and thoughts of the old owner of that organ. So we're not really sure. We can't actually find where it happens. Because we've been told so much it's in our brain, I think we feel like it's in our brain. We also have this emotional thing that happens where from what we think, it affects our emotional body, which we feel in the body. So if we think negatively of ourselves, then we feel negative feelings. And if we have positive thoughts, we have positive feelings. And our thoughts are dependent on what we interact with and what we've been conditioned to think. And we as humans believe that's who we are. All those things that I've described is who we are. Most people wouldn't be conscious of that. They would just say, me, I'm this separate entity inside this body, and I have choice and I have free will, and I'm living in a separate relationship with the world. And they think that this person that I described is experiencing life. Now, I'm not trying to deny the personal experience, because it does seem like we have this personal experience that's coming up in every instant. But what I'm questioning, and what non-duality questions, is who is it that's experiencing? So we think it's this person which I've described that's experiencing. But is it possible that that person is also an experience? And why this is so important is because this is a fundamental change in what's happening. If this gets questioned, because there is another possibility to see something that's beyond the personal. And when there begins to be a seeing beyond the personal, there's a remembering of who you are, which is love. If you're just totally identified with the personal, then you've totally forgotten love. You can taste it momentarily. But love is the essence of this universe. I know that sounds really far-fetched, that love is the essence. It's like, well, why would love be the essence? I don't really mean love as in a feeling. It's beyond that. But it's love. And it's also freedom from the dream, because on the human level, life can be difficult. Life is full of the light and the dark. It's full of positive pleasure and pain. Like all of us, if we live a long life, we're going to experience the death of our parents, the death of our family, not of our children more than likely, but the death of our siblings, the death of our friends, depending on how long your life is, if you're the first to go or the last to go. And we're going to come up against tragedies in life. We're going to have friends or family members that lie and cheat to us. We're most probably going to experience theft, as well as positive things. We're going to experience abundance and giving and sharing and beauty and love, but we're going to experience both sides of life. However, if you're totally identified with that person and you think that person is who you are, and that you're limited to a life of, say, 80 years, and you're limited to your experiences, then inevitably you're going to feel frustrated, and slowly life is going to begin to wear you down. You're going to feel like life is too much, because it was never meant to be that way. You were never meant to take the responsibility of life. Something happened in the human which doesn't happen in all other animals, is this identification with this thought-bound person. And this makes it feel like somebody is experiencing life. Whereas really, who you are beyond the person, this pure watching, this pure consciousness, and this emptiness and everythingness, it's not affected by anything. And when there is the shift back to that, then life comes and goes, and though the human gets conditioned and traumatized and enjoys things, there is this removal from it. You could also say an intimacy with it, because it stops you rejecting life, it stops you trying to hide from life on the human level. So there's intimacy with everything, but it's also this emptiness that means that things happen, but it's not happening to anyone. Now, this can sound really intensely crazy because it's so far out, but just look to your experience right now. You've got all these descriptions that you can describe yourself of. And what's your actual experience? Is that person watching, or is that one that you describe yourself to be being watched? Because if it's being watched, if there's something that's conscious of that person, then who is that that's conscious of that person? And this is where the freedom is. It's a remembering of home in this instant, in presence. It's becoming comfortable again with presence, with who you are. There is this stillness looking out, this emptiness that's not affected by anything that happens in this world, and is all things. And the fact that it's all things is the love side, this intimacy with all things, and that it's empty. This isn't just something I say, the Tibetans said it, the Buddhists say it, the Hindus say it. I think all religions say it. I think it's been spoken about in poetry, with artists. I think Shakespeare spoke about it. That there is something beyond the character. However, this is a warning. Do not use this message to try to fix the character. You fix the character like if you had a broken leg, you go and get a cast on your leg. You fix the character by reconditioning yourself to have more positive associations with life, and to put yourself on the human level in more positive situations. And that's an ongoing process that I still do. I still recondition Lisa to, my big thing is boundaries. And I still work on the human level, and I think that that's important, that all of us that listen to this get used to that idea. There's no end to it. There's no end to reconditioning yourself. This isn't a goal about I'm going to get enlightened when I recondition myself, or I'm going to get a prize when I recondition myself. Reconditioning yourself is a process that's endless. And it's about becoming more and more balanced with your thoughts and your actions and your feelings. And this is a really simple process. It's not something really alien. Basically, you have to understand yourself. You have to understand your dark side and your light side, which all of us have. I know everyone likes to pretend they've only got light and they're innocent and they're victim to everybody else's badness, but all of us have dark and light sides. So on the human level, you have to understand that, including me. I have a dark side. I have a tendency, I can have a tendency towards negativity, and I try my best, not negativity, but towards more negative actions or selfish actions, and I try to recondition them in the best way possible. That's good for other people and good for myself. And all of you should be humble to do that. And ultimately, there's nobody doing anything and life is happening, and that's really beautiful. But on the human level, it feels like you are doing something. So it feels like you do have the possibility to recondition yourself and to learn and to grow and to change. So on the human level, it's not the human that takes on there is no doer and I'm not a doer. On the human level, it does feel like you're the doer. So it does feel like you make the dinner. But then there can be this recognition of the absolute level, that everything's flowing from the absolute and nothing's personal. But that's beyond the person, that's not intellectual. This is nothing, there's nothing intellectual in that. So it's seeing what's happening now. Who's looking? In this instant, who looks? Is it your thinking mind that looks, or is the thinking mind being looked at? Is it the feelings that look, or is it the feelings that are being looked at and experienced? Is it the body that looks, or is it the body that's being experienced? And then how far does that experiencer go? That empty looking, that silent, still looking that's here and present. How far does it go? Where does your looking stop? Where does your experiencing stop? And is your experiencing moving or still? Or is it in contradiction? It's movement and stillness. So does your looking stop here or here? Or does your experiencing stop in all things? So are all things inside or outside of your experience? In this very moment, who is experiencing life? This is love. Love is not found in reconditioning yourself. Reconditioning yourself is about pleasure and pain. Love is only found in this moment, in this instant. And it's love. We often find love, or I'm defining as love, in things we enjoy, because in those moments when we're enjoying something, we totally forget about ourselves. And then our mind compartmentalizes that and says, it's that thing that gave us love. That thing gave you pleasure and enjoyment. And what it also gave was a collapse of you. You began to stop seeing yourself as the experiencer, and then there was just experiencing happening. So this is what is really being talked about here. But this has to be, there's to be a carefulness in talking about this, because taking that on board psychologically isn't beneficial to you. Psychologically, you need to be human. And that's really impossible for the person to hear, because the person wants to take everything on board for itself. And what you need to be on the human level is the best version of yourself. And what that means on the human level, to be the best version of yourself, is to be as authentically you as you can be. And what I mean by as authentically you is to understand yourself and to act out of the least amount of complexities. So if somebody is wanting to go to dinner with you and really insistent that you have to go to dinner, and you really feel like you don't want to, but you feel this guilt and all these other complicated feelings, you try to go back to the most simple feeling there is, and to be as most authentically self as you can be, and to try to be honest in that communication about that. But in order to do that, you have to understand your dark side and your light side first. You have to bring the unconscious into the conscious. And that is an endless process in a way. Like, you can always learn more about yourself, but most of the time when people come into this, they're totally unconscious of themselves on the human level. And this isn't about not feeling feelings. This is about embracing feelings. So embracing all the feelings, the dark and the light. And not pretending you're just good, that you're just victim, that you're just light. But being honest with all of it. That you too get jealous, that you too get angry, that you too feel guilty. Not all people feel guilt. People that are more on the narcissistic spectrum don't feel guilt. That's totally okay. You're not bad if you're narcissistic, although people need to be more cautious of you. And understanding as much as you can as to what you want, because understanding what you want empowers you. And this isn't about always getting what you want, although the more you do this, more than likely the more you will get what you want. The more you're in rejection of life, more than likely the more you'll get less of what you want. But a lot of the time when I start working with people, people aren't even aware of what they want. So it's a process on the human level of getting to know yourself. And then on the absolute level, this seeing. Who looks now? Who looks now? There's this infinite space that's undefinable, that's still, that's connected to this love, to everything you ever wanted. I'm just going to go to the toilet and then I'll come back and ask some questions, answer some questions. Okay. So, hey, Carmilla. Oh, sorry, Carmella. Hi, Jindy. Hi, Julio. Hi, Annalise. Hi, Megan. Hi, Is-T. Hi, Isabel. Hi, Jeremy. Oh, yeah, thanks for your comments, Jeremy. But I think it was too late by the time I started. Hi, Renate. Hi, Thomas. Hi, Elango. So I'm happy to speak with people on the phone. But first of all, I would like you to write out what question you want to ask. The reason I want you to write out what question you want to ask is because I think it's important to define it so you don't get overwhelmed when we go live, because suddenly going live and having 120 people, 30 people listening to you and thousands later on YouTube suddenly becomes intimidating. So writing it out can help ground you for when you're going to ask the question. So also, could you define, because I want you to do this, if it's a non-duality question or a personal question. And the reason that I want you to do that is because I want you to start understanding the difference. And I'm happy to deal with both, but they are different subjects. And I want in your brain for you to get used to that, so that when you can recognize when on the human level there needs to be a reconditioning. I'm not trying to use non-duality to recondition, because using non-duality is maybe not the best psychological tool to recondition yourself. Thank you. Good morning, Lisa. I was dreaming with you a few hours ago. I think we were attending the same concert. Anyway, the main thing I recall is that we had a very nice big hug full of love and gratitude. Really appreciate that you give this time to so regularly to us. So helpful. Oh, thanks, Carmella. Hey, Jindy. Hi, Lisa. Nice to see you. Another pleasant Sunday. Thank you. Hi, Julia. Hi, Megan. Hi, Lisa. I was just wondering if you had any advice for when people have unhealthy attachments to us, even when you are trying to let them go. I have someone who is very attached, and it's using guilt to keep me from leaving. Any input on how to handle this would be appreciated. Thanks. Hey, Megan. Thank you so much for your question. So just to be clear with people, this is a person, a human problem that we're talking about. We're not talking about non-duality as such, although non-duality is the absolute freedom. So seeing right now that that person with the problem isn't who you actually are, there's something that's looking at that, this stillness. But on the human level, this is a valid problem. How do we deal with that? All of us have to deal with that, including me. We all have to deal with people trying to use guilt as a tactic to get what they want. And I'm sure all of us are guilty of it as well, that we've used guilt in order to get what we want. I can't say I'm innocent of that. I'm sure I've done it too. And it can vary. It can be like a momentarily thing. Like if we want someone to carry our bag, we can maybe look. Or it can be something bigger, like using it constantly to stay child. So for example, this might not be you, Megan, but just to talk about the subject, you might be a character that's never properly detached from the authority figure and doesn't really fully want to stand up in life and take responsibility. And this is why I realized over speaking for many years that talking about there is no responsibility ultimately isn't good on a human level, because that often attracts people that don't want to take responsibility for their life. And taking responsibility for your life is human, and it's part of the path of the human. That's an important part, to stand up and take responsibility for what's happening and to change what's happening. If you begin to get into this idea, which you'll already have it, so you'll already not be wanting to take responsibility for your life, and then what happens is you hear non-duality, that ultimately on the human level you're just a product of everything else, you're a product of everything. Then what happens is that adds to that, and it gives another excuse to not stand up. If you don't stand up, you're always going to be feeling the pain of not standing up, so you're going to have more pain. Even though in the short run it's painful to stand up and take responsibility for yourself, in the long run you're going to experience more pain, because you're going to see everyone else around you grow up and take responsibility and move on with their lives, and you're not going to. And you're going to be dependent on other people. And it's also going to increase your fear, because on one level you'll fear that you can't do it, and you'll fear that you are dependent on other people. And there's many reasons why people do that. There's such a variety of reasons that happens to people. And that's something that you have to work through slowly to understand yourself, and bit by bit become more conscious of what your unconscious is saying and what your dark side is saying. So I can't diagnose what's happening there, Megan. I'm just giving some information which might help you question your situation and move you on to other information, or to look at it in further detail. And then you've got to see what you get out of that situation. So by not moving on, so you want to move on, but by not moving on, what do you get out of that situation? By staying there to relieve your guilt, what does that give you? In the short term, it might give you relief, but in the long term, it's not going to give you relief, because you're still going to be in a situation which you don't want to be in. And that situation on a daily basis is going to keep giving you pain. And it's going to lead to all other thoughts, that you're not worthy of something else, that there's loads of different thoughts and feelings that will come with that. So why is it on the human level that you aren't moving away? And for the answer for all these things, you've got to get to know your body and what your body's saying, and keep going underneath it. So what's underneath that feeling? What's underneath that thought? And not in a way to shame yourself or say that you're bad. Like, you've got to look at all of this as positive. So recondition yourself. So every time you get to know yourself a bit better, it's like bing bing. That's great. It's not a dysfunction every time you get to know yourself better. When you realize that you've been acting out of fear or shame or something, that's not a bad thing. That's not something to be more shameful for. That's a great thing. Because every time you get to know yourself better, your life will change on the human level for the better. But again, don't be dictated to by what I say or what other people say. You've got to begin to explore and get to know your body better. So I would suggest meditation to get to know your body better, to understanding the chakras, and examining your thought processes and your actions as well, like an investigator. What does this mean? Thanks, Megan, for your question. Hi, Izti. Hi, Lisa. Our Zen master suggests us that we should work with the question, what's this, rather than the old school, who am I? He said the who supports the belief in the separate person. As you like. And then the what's this will da-da-da-da. As you like. Just go with what resonates towards you. It almost feels a little bit on the human level, it is that you've listened to what he said, rather than taking what he says in an objective way and cross-checking all the data and information that you've heard. It's almost like you've taken that in a way, like I can hear that. Like, how does it make you feel when you say that? Like, how does it make you feel when you think one thing is better than the other, or one thing will lead you there and one thing won't? What's the psychological process there? And then beyond that, who's experiencing that? Who? Hey, Isabel. Beloved, thank you for these thoughtful and heartful. Thanks, Isabel. Hi, Renate. Hi, Lisa. Love your sweet emoticons. I don't get your announcement any longer. Wednesday, more than 1 hour later. Today, I went to your website on time. Oh, nice. Yes, it's now embedded into my website, so you can watch from my website on the live stream page. I don't know why that's coming through late for you. Let's see what time it came through for me in one of my accounts. Yeah, it didn't even come through on my account that I went live yet. Yeah. There's not really much that you could do about that. Yeah, it's to do with YouTube, and they're always updating and changing. It didn't even come through for me. I'm thinking that maybe if you set up a different account, that might work. Like, you set up a different account and subscribe from that account. But I suspect it's a bug in YouTube, and they will fix it. They keep stealing views from my video at the moment, YouTube. Although I can't accuse without evidence, but I know they're doing it. They do it to people's videos sporadically. It's not that they steal views as such, it's that they pause views. And then sometimes they give them back and then they don't. I think it's like an automated thing to check against computers, but they seem to be getting stuck on doing it to mine. The other thing you could try doing is going on to my page, unsubscribing and subscribing again, and pressing the bell and checking that you've got everything checked off. That's another thing. My tech guy always says, if it doesn't work, turn it off and turn it on again. That's your first port of call. And it often works. Hi, Lisa. I'm not sure if this is a human question or a non-duality question. That's great that you even acknowledge that. That's really great that you acknowledge that you're not quite sure of that difference. And then eventually, the more and more this is brought up, the more and more it'll become clear. So that's even great that you acknowledge that. I have been using non-duality to learn more about the ways in which my ego works to protect itself. And over time, I have been learning to let go more deeply. The trouble is, I have had a lot of anxiety come up, making me question whether I'm doing something wrong or if this should be expected. I feel more undefended than ever, and yet my nervous system feels on alert. I don't seem to have a particular story that accompanies this anxious alertness. Any thoughts or insights are appreciated. I really need to work with you privately. Like if I work with you, firstly, like these types of questions, this is a personal thing. So these personal questions, they tend to take time to undo these things as to why these things are coming up. So it's not something that I can read and I can give you, because you're asking me personally, that I can give you a personal answer to. I can talk about anxiety and I can talk about these things that you've brought up, the ego, but I can't talk specifically about you because I don't know you well enough, and I don't want to lead you into a direction that's not as beneficial as another direction. And it's impossible for me to get 4 lines written on Skype to understand what's happening in your body-mind. This is a personal question. So a lot of people talk about you've got to dissolve the ego in order to wake up. And that's not, to me, it depends on what they define the ego as. But to me, that's not the way I speak. So I wouldn't say you dissolve the ego, because my teacher used to say, you are the ego, you are the personality on the human level. So if we take ego as personality, as the characteristics, as the conditioning, I don't think it's, or for me, that's not what you dissolve. What you dissolve is this attachment that believes that that personality structure is the experiencer. It's this moving back to the experiencer that's beyond that. And and often when that happens, the personality needs to become more balanced. So you have to work on the personality to see things more clearly. And then when you have that awakening and that realization that you are this infinite one being, and it's an energetic shift as well, it's not just a realization. When that happens, then the personality changes naturally over time by itself, because it affects the person. It affects the dream of the person, which is too complicated for me to say, but it does affect the person. But it's not the person that wakes up, and it's not that person that the characteristics that needs to dissolve the stuff. It's that energy that sucks on and says, this is who I am. I'm a combination of consciousness, these thoughts, these feelings, these emotions, the I am, and I'm inside this body. And I'm a separate soul that's inside this body. It's the letting go of that, and then the person will settle. But often you have to settle the person beforehand. And it's this movement back into what you are. Because it's a trick of the mind that's making it feel like you're this solid entity inside the body. And that trick of the mind is up against life too hardly and taking things too much into time. And making that personality too important. Because really the way things are, when you have these awakenings, is that I am and that consciousness is actually everywhere in everything, which is so hard for the mind to comprehend. But the I am and consciousness isn't separate from that which it's looking at. So you can maybe get it that there's nothing that's outside of your experience. So maybe that's more easy to comprehend on the thought level. But then what is your experience? And then you see in every moment what always stays the same is there's always consciousness and this sense of I am. And this consciousness and this I am isn't separate from anything that appears in the consciousness and I am. it's not actually energetically sucked inside the body. Consciousness is actually looking from everywhere, and that I am is actually everywhere. And this is love and intimacy beyond the personality structure. Then in that, there's a personality structure. Now, normally when that awakening happens, the personality structure has become more and more conscious and balanced of itself on the personal level. It's become a more integrated person. And then once that recognition happens, it will over time become more and more integrated. But it's not about becoming a perfect human, because you can't. The human is an animal that's derived from apes, we believe, which can be selfish, which can be mean, which can be power hungry, enlightened or not. That's part of being human. As you begin to see that you are consciousness and this I am, then there's an acceptance of that. When you're so identified with the person, that's so hard to accept, because you so badly want to be the good person. The reason you want to actually be the good person is because that's what you've always been told. Be good boy, good girl. Even if you've been negatively conditioned to be bad. It's cool, eh, this subject? It's cool. So what I do when I work with people one-on-one is, if I'm repetitively working with them, if I'm doing a one-off session, then I might not go so deeply. But when I'm working with people one-on-one, is I give all the responsibility back to the person that's participating in the one-on-one session. And all I do is ask questions, and I make the person do all the work that I'm interacting with. And that's taken me time to learn how to do that. At first, I used to do way too much work in the sessions, like answering questions and trying to convince. Whereas now, I get the person that I'm working with to do it all. I ask the person questions, and that's mostly what I do. I ask the person questions, and through asking the questions, it makes the person think about themselves. And then when there's the time, if there is the time, and if there is the right moment, I slip in the non-dual stuff. But often, first of all, we have to work through some of the human ideas firstly, because the human ideas have led the human to experience lots of pain. And until it relaxes that pain, it's going to be fixated on that pain. And the energy is too dense to comprehend another possibility. It's like if somebody was hitting you in the face, your energy would be so focused on that pain of being hit in the face, that you couldn't, like listening to non-duality, that's not who you are, that you're something beyond that. It's like, can we just stop the hitting first? And sometimes people's conditioning's like that, especially in our current society. People often don't know what they want. They're confused by themselves. The problem is with me doing one-to-one sessions on the phone, which I'm so happy to do, like on these live streams, I'm so happy to do them. But the problem with it is it requires the person that I'm doing it with to be really open and to really expose themselves. And I mean, that's hard to ask someone to do, to be recorded and to be forever on the internet. So I tend to stay away from interacting too much with people, because and I used to have people phone in, but I can't really go for it because, you know, it's a recorded forum, and I know it's only your voice, but it's still very intimate for people. And I don't want to speak about non-duality if the personal stuff's coming up. I just don't like it. It doesn't feel right in my body. If you've got a broken leg, you deal with the broken leg. You don't start saying there's nobody there. I think I used non-duality to relieve myself of the pain of my past, like a drug, using the notion of I had no choice to dull the pain of my past mistakes. Now the drug seems to be having no effect and I feel despair. I feel that the separate self is defined by others. Non-duality is easily perceived when I'm alone, but then my family and colleagues remind me of the constructed for self. This is why I have to isolate myself. You don't have to isolate yourself, and isolating yourself isn't a healthy thing because we're social animals. And if you haven't learned how to be by yourself, it takes a long time to learn how to be by yourself, then often if you isolate yourself, then you can get into a negative pattern. Like, I spent many years practicing with Buddhists of how to be by myself. I remember the first time I attempted it, my Buddhist group was telling me not to go and do this solo retreat. And my boyfriend had done it, and I was like, I will do it, I can do it. I have a very strong mind when it wants to be strong about something. So I went to, I maybe have told you this 1,000 times, I went to this cabin in the middle of the countryside, and it's near this Buddhist retreat centre. And when I went there, I just assumed there would be people at the Buddhist centre. But there wasn't. That week there was no retreat, and I was in this cabin in the middle of the countryside all by myself at 24 years old. In this cabin, the front of it was all glass, and then it was like a box. Had no TV, no phone, no internet, a couple of books, a bed, and some food, and that was it. And what do you think my mind began to do? It didn't begin to tell me how wonderful it was and how wonderful the situation was. It did the sensible thing a mind does, is it acknowledged the situation and it perceived the potential dangers. And I couldn't get my mind off the perceived potential dangers. And my mind went into a man was going to come when it got dark. It was also the winter time, so it was getting dark at 3:30 at night, and was going to kill me. And obviously this is a trauma of mine. So it's like everyone has their particular fears, and that was my trauma. And I couldn't get my mind off it. And it got dark at 4 o'clock in the evening, and it didn't get light again till about 7:38 in the morning. So I had over 12 hours of darkness. And it's natural that the mind, when it goes to a new situation, it's going to perceive the fears. But you're not letting your mind get stuck on that is an art. Like, that's an art to learn how to deal with that. And, it went right to the core of one of my main issues, is like one of my deep fears and one of my deep traumas. And then the first day I went out walking, I was on the road, and a guy in a van drove along, and he stopped the van and he got out to talk to me, and he talked to me as he sat in the back bit, which was open. And this can be typical when you're a pretty woman. The men don't necessarily realise that they're making you afraid. He was a young guy, and he just saw me, and he's from the countryside, and he just stopped to have a chat to see what I was doing. But I was terrified. And that was on my first day, and I think I was walking to the shops, and then I walked back again, and I thought he knew where I lived. I just went into panic. And I did it for 5 days, I think. I had to do 7 days. And oh my goodness, you can't understand the terror I went through in those 5 days. Sometimes it was fine, but often my dreams were very frightening, and I'd wake up during the night, and it was like a cabin that was wood. There was very thin walls, and it was just too much for me. I couldn't get my mind off those thoughts, and I got overwhelmed by it. So I often meet these people on the internet that begin to recoil from society, or they listen to the subject and they think they want to do something. And like, this stuff is intense stuff psychologically. Like, it's it's you got to be gentle with these things. You can't just throw yourself straight into the fire. Like it can be too much. So isolating yourself isn't the way to go. It's not that other people are causing your ego. It's that with other people you haven't learned how to deal with other people, and so you're avoiding it. And I don't know why you've not learned to deal with other people, but you've not learned how to stay authentic to yourself, and you've not learned to deal with the pain of being with other people, because being with other people can be painful for anybody. So it's not so easy as you think. And be careful with isolating yourself, because you know, when you're out in society, even if it's causing you pain, it's also creating pleasure in you. Yeah. But I can't speak specifically for you, James, because I don't know you, and we have to speak more in depth about these sorts of things. You know, it's a long process to understand yourself, and I'm just giving examples of things and of my life, and hopefully you can use that to help navigate things. But I hear of a lot of people that try to do Ramana Maharshi and like live in a cave suddenly, and it's too shocking for the system that's always been interacting in a society that's always had something to do. And then if you get into the spiral of like producing lots of negative emotions and feelings, it's hard then to get yourself out of that spiral. And then you have this idea that you're going to get enlightened, and then you keep feeling more uncomfortable feelings, and then you keep telling yourself, I've failed, I've done something wrong. It can be a slippery slope. Like, it's good to be in groups. So go to your city, meet other people that are into non-duality, meet teachers, go on retreats. Don't just stay at home and watch this on YouTube. Like, go out and meet people. Hello, Lisa. Yesterday I stumbled on an interview with you and was very touched and taken by the presence, love and silence you radiate. Sometimes, though, it is very difficult to look from the emptiness, because the habit to look as a person is great and the mind is making it extremely difficult to disidentify from it. How can I change that? Thank you. Hi, P-Man. Pie-Man. Sorry, Pie-Man. I'm sorry. I'm not sure how to pronounce your name. Hi, Pie-Man. On the human level, you need to understand the human and get the human into a balanced situation where it feels balanced and empowered and strong. And then keep listening to non-duality. Go on retreats, meet other people into non-duality. And it will change. And just notice that thought, how can I change that? And that it's extremely difficult to disidentify is not helpful to you. Those sorts of thinking, you can just let that go. Just accept that it's going to happen. You don't know when it's going to happen, but it's going to happen. There's going to be a seeing that that's not who you are. And that change is going to happen. And you don't need to worry about when it's going to happen or how long it takes. It's going to happen. Thank you, Lisa. Thanks, James. Greetings, Lisa. Great words and silence moments too. People you coincidentally meet are the answer. Hey, Chris. Hi, dear Lisa. Hi, Lisa dear, hi. No, I'm sorry, Lisa dear, hi. As my dyslexia, it changes the sentences. You are beautiful, physically and internally, such a lovely combination. Such a pleasure to watch and feel you. Thank you. Thanks for you. Please, if I can ask, if there's something as falling into non-duality too fast, so your body is late and presents you with all sorts of blocks, pains and discomforts. I listen to these things hours a day. Hope this is not a totally stupid question. Thanks, Lisa. No, I don't think you can listen to non-duality too soon. I think it's beautiful. I think it's freedom. But you need to examine what these blocks and pains and discomfort are. Like on the human level, you need to objectively look at why that's happening. You know, is there something out of flow in your life? Because the internal and the external are the same. You know, is your body saying something which is not receiving? Is the situations you're in not so good? If it's old traumas or I think, though, that to really change your conditioning in a way, you have to really know non-duality, because in order to really change your conditioning, you have to really accept it. Like, really accept it. Like, everybody has a dark side. Everybody. And what I mean by a dark side is like everybody, including the most enlightened person, can have dark thoughts or dark feelings about things and can be greedy or selfish, all these things that we call the negative. And enlightenment is, or enlightenment on the human level, so being more balanced human, is the acknowledgement of that and the working with that and not trying to avoid that. These dark sides get acted out really negatively and become very dangerous when they're unconscious. And so you've just got to become conscious of what your body's saying and doing. Hi Lisa, personal question. Normally when people talk about projections, we talk about projecting our negativity onto others. It seems I have the opposite problem. I often project positivity onto others and place the negativity on myself, unable to see that in fact I am okay and they're actually more cruel, malevolent than I thought they were. It's like I idolize people around me. Do you have any experience with that? I think it's a kind of codependent thing, thanks. So many times I've let others take advantage of me and I'm naively unaware of it. Yeah. It's because you don't understand yourself on the human level. You understand yourself, I'm sure, on great depth. Sorry, that sounded really rude, but it's because you don't understand your animal side on the human level. Like, I don't mean to call it negative, but you don't understand your selfishness, your want, your greed. So you understand your lightness and you understand your love, but you have to embrace all these sides and all these elements of you, and through embracing them, then you can stand up to other people and you can put up boundaries to other people. When you understand what you want, it makes you so much more stronger. But when you understand what you want, then it makes you a more predator. That can be scary for us sometimes if we've always identified as the victim. And all of us have that ability to be predator. All of us are like, right, I want this house, or I want this, or I want that. And you just have to understand that side of yourself, and then understanding that side will make you more strong, believe it or not. We fear our dark side, but every element of us on the human helps us survive. It's like we've pushed down these like hunter instincts, these these wanting to have things for ourselves, and through pushing them down, we've made ourselves just weak. I had this problem too. I still can have this problem too. So identifying what I want helps me put up boundaries with people. But it's still something I have to work with because I'm so used to looking for what other people want. And the more that I associate what I want in the situation, the stronger it makes me. Like the strongest person in the room is the person that knows what they want. The strongest person in the room isn't the person that knows what they want and get it will all cost other people. That's the narcissistic psychopath personality. I'm not suggesting that in any level. Like, I'm not saying don't have compassion, but to understand what you want makes you strong. To understand when you're in a room of who you want to talk to and who you don't want to talk to, and that you're not guilty for having preferences, doesn't make you a bad person. Doesn't mean that you have to be rude to the people you don't want to talk to, but it means also that you don't spend hours in a conversation that you don't like. And what will happen in your brain is you'll be telling yourself you're not good enough to speak to the other person. It's all conditioning. It's all unconscious conditioning that's happening. But all of these things you have to work through slowly. It's like you're not going to get to them like that. I mean, I've been working on myself for like 20 years, and I still have to repetitively work on boundaries. I was brought up with shocking boundaries in my family, and yeah, and I didn't get taught how to put up appropriate boundaries. And also my family taught me that in order to have a peaceful household, we had to not have boundaries. Because we had a lot of illness in my family, the illness was all important, and what other people wanted wasn't important. Or what I wanted wasn't important. It was important making the ill people peaceful. And so it's something that I always having to work on, and life put me in this situation of being the speaker, the non-duality speaker. It's not even like being a teacher. Like if I was a teacher of, say, like science or French or something, it's still even more intense than that, because people have this idea about you being this perfect person, and like they almost put you up as godlike. Whereas if you're just a French teacher, you're just a French teacher. And yeah. You have to have really strong boundaries in what I do. And then also life gave me a fairly pretty body as well. It's like the combination is I have to have super strong boundaries. But life is always doing that, and it can either sink you or float you. Like my personality could have been sinked by that, or it can float you. It can make you keep stepping up. And actually the more I step up and the more I put boundaries in, the stronger and stronger I become. And the stronger and stronger I feel on the human level. And that's not, like, so look at that thought. So many times I've let other people take advantage of me, and I'm naively unaware. Look at that thought and try and turn it into a positive. Like, try to turn it into something that it's given you to learn. So try to, and this is good for everyone on the human level, and you're reconditioning yourself to try to look at the stumbles in life, what's caused you pain in life, as something that's helping you learn and grow. And that's so good to look at it like that, because then it's like giving you a pleasure out of a painful situation. It's giving you a tick of a painful situation. And don't get arrogant or cocky with this stuff on the human level. All of us can grow. All of us. When you think you're done, I had a good quote about this the other day. When you think you're done, and you think you've finished or you're arrived, then it cuts you off to all possibilities. And there's infinite possibilities, so there's infinite ways to change and to grow and to evolve on the human level. And we want to. That's what we're programmed to do, is to take in situations and to evolve from it on the human level. And then on the absolute level, it's perfect, brilliant stillness appearing as movement. So who is looking at all of this? Who's experiencing all of this right now? So we talked all about the human, the conditioning, and who experiences that human and the conditioning. I just quit drinking coffee last week, possibly my longest lasting addiction, 20 plus years. Now I'm not making light of it because I know how hard it is to battle with a real addiction, having struggled with alcohol addiction in the past. But I'm really wondering now if I should reconsider and maybe allow myself a little pleasure, which admittedly has been a huge part of my downtime and recreation and a large part of socializing at work. And yes, I could drink loads the stuff. Living a rather Spartan life of little excess and being vegan, I was really curious what this difference would make in my life, and I'm not really sure that it's worth it in the end. What do you think? Do you drink coffee? And if so, have you tried not drinking for a period? And did it feel good? I do drink coffee, but what I like is tea. That's my like. Yeah, I do go through periods without it. I don't really notice that much of a difference. I notice a lot of difference with the sugar, like eating lots of sugar and not eating lots of sugar, eating sugar late at night. But I don't notice so much difference with the tea or coffee. With the alcohol addiction, from what I understand from AA, I would never go back on that. I wouldn't get into that thinking. I would totally stay away from that, but I don't think you were asking about that. It's very difficult dealing with alcohol or drug addictions or eating disorders. Yeah. Thank you, Lisa. I resonate with the trauma you described from your days in the cabin. Can that be worked on in a one-to-one session, or would you recommend I found one here where we can join person to person? I'm not a trauma therapist, so I'm sure you could find a trauma therapist online or in person. I can help you understand yourself and understand it and understand what's happening. But I know trauma release techniques, but I don't know what would work on you. These are ones that I've used for myself. There's a book that you might enjoy called Waking the Tiger. But I can, or on the personal level in my sessions, I very much just reflect back to you. So I just keep asking questions and digging and make you think about what you're doing and what you're not doing and why you're doing it. And then the rest is down to you. And I get you to learn about your body. So I'll ask you lots of questions. How does that make you feel in the body when that happens? So that the attention goes into the feelings and you understand your feelings. And that gives you the tool of then, if you're in a situation you're feeling a strong feeling, you very quickly know what that means and what it's triggering in you. So I'm like a light shiner on the unconscious. I really found, from my personal technique of releasing trauma, is waking the tiger. And this works really well for me, but I don't know if it works so well for everybody. And that's basically, it's a process of staying with the feeling and letting the feeling come out of your body. But there's lots of different techniques. There's the rapid eye movement you can look up. There is kinesiology. There's lots of different, there's Reiki. lots of different things. I am like a light shiner, a digger, and I find it fascinating and I love it. I don't mean to say that I love people suffering if they come with suffering or a difficult story, but I love helping them explore it and grow from that experience. Thanks, Lisa. No, alcohol is a big no. I will never return to that horror. Sorry, I'm laughing because I'm I don't know if I can call myself an ex-addict or if I have to call myself an addict, but I was a bulimic, which apparently is the same as alcoholism or very similar to alcoholism. So I know there is, yeah. Thank you. I like the light shining approach. Yeah, I'm like an investigator. Like, thanks, Ilengo. It's the end of the session now, so I won't call you. Maybe we can speak next time. Okay, guys, that's enough for today. Thank you so much. It was nice sharing with you. I really enjoyed it. And I send you lots of love, and I shall see you at Wednesday, 6 p.m. French time. Thanks. Bye.